How is everyone?
Good.
Yeah. Before a couple of you got on here, Aisling was saying that we kind of went from like first grade to sixth grade in like a week. Much more difficult this week, I know. I have some ideas though. But before we get into that, I guess I'd love to see kind of where you're at. I know nothing's kind of fully approved or anything like that, but love to have each pair kind of walk the rest of the team through sort of how far did you get, what did you run into that was hard, that was a problem, or a blocker, or did you just like run out of time, or like kind of give us an update so we all understand what the state of the project is. So who wants to go first?
I can go first if nobody else wants to go. Let me.
Everybody wants to go, but they don't necessarily want to go first.
Let's see. Let's share screen. Share screen. Share. All right. So let's demo it really quick. I actually have it
Wow, open. That's amazing. Oh, that's the Zoom screen. Sorry.
Yeah. So so basically our issue this week, if we take a look at it up here, I had the PR open, but not the issue, was from the API that we discussed from our course discussion last week, to just grab the nearby places using our latitude and longitude, render some of the pins on our map, and then we had a couple ones where, like, if there's no image, because some of the items from the list don't have an image, so we have a default. And then also locations where we won't get pins back, so handle that gracefully. So if we open the pull request really quick, I kind of checked off what we've done and what needs to be done still. The pins haven't been completely rendered yet for the actual specifications that we originally wanted. Mm-hmm. And also right now, you'll see in the code, we haven't really addressed what to do when there are no locations returned, or if there's an error. And we put comments in the code where that would be done. So if we first take a look, actually, if we go back to the PR requests, we can kind of take a look at the commits to see the progression of how I went through things. I first created a pin, which is a component that will go on the map. And then I created an encapsulating component that would render multiple pins, but this is also where the actual fetch from the API happens. And then I ran into a few troubles at the bottom. I ended up making local state and also using use effect. And so we'll see that soon here. And now if we open this up, so here is the simple pin component. I have a constant for the default image that was just in one of our public image folders that was provided to us. I did set the height and width of the pin to be 25 pixels, which is probably why it's so small, but it doesn't expand or anything like that. I also created the title, the image, and the description here. If you see, I conditionally rendered everything to see if it actually does exist, because occasionally in some of the items from the API, it might be missing one thing or another. And just in case it returns null, you'll see in nearby pins, if there's nothing there, it just sets it to null. There is a default just so that it doesn't break the code. So that's basically the pin. And then if we go to nearby pins, I create two helper functions. One actually grabs the data, and it basically is kind of like the promise. And then the other one takes the actual fetch and then parses it into a dictionary that we can use later. And so this is where we use this promise, and then we use a .then, because then we take the response once the promise has resolved. And then this is the part of the JSON response that we actually want to look at, because that's where all of the nearby places are. And then for all of the things, I just basically console logged the response and try to look at the structure and just grab all the things that we needed from each of the places and then set it to a dictionary and return the dictionary. And so we did that for every single place by mapping it over. And so it returns an array of dictionaries. This is right here, there's just an else because we check to see if this even exists. If it doesn't exist, it's going to be null. So this will be falsy, it'll go to else. And right now it just returns an empty array. So it doesn't differentiate between erroring out or having an empty array right now. So that's something in the future that should be added. And then also, so if we take a look at the actual body of the component, so it has the props lat and long, and then we have the local state nearby places. The initial state is just an empty array. Otherwise, the map errors out. And so then the actual fetch of the data goes into the use effect so that the component can first actually, I'm not sure about the terminology, not mount, but the component can actually render first, and then we grab the data, and then the data can be rendered on top of that with new pins. And so then that way it doesn't give you errors saying like, oh, you're trying to set state before the component mounts or other weird errors that I was getting originally. And so another thing to note is that I encapsulated these in a React fragment instead of a div because in the map, the Google, what is it called? The Google Map React pack or Google, what is it called? Google Map React package. The pins go in kind of like a bunch of child objects. And so I didn't know if encapsulating it in a div would break it. And then that's basically it. So it returns all of the children pins, and then you just put it here inside the map. And then in the documentation, these are where all the pins live. And so that's basically what I wrote yesterday. So yeah, so some improvements is just like error handling as well as null API return handling. And also this odd lat long issue with the pins not rendering in the right place. The only place that should matter is actually in the pin here because we set it as a prop of lat long. And if you look at the documentation, these are the right prop names. And so I'm not sure, I might be something else that's happening that's making them render in one line.
Actually, now that because I didn't look at map.js before, now I'm thinking because you're passing a lat and a long to that component, that it's actually that Google Map React is saying that all these things are just at that place. It's ignoring the lat and long that's on the children, I think. So what you might have to do is
like change the name of this one.
I think build up those pins kind of in the same place as Google Map React and just stuff them in there as an array or something, as opposed to a component.
Okay, I can try that.
So I think the good news here is that you are already handling the case where there's no pins are returned, because you have a default of an empty array and that renders fine, and then you have if somehow there's a problem with the API or whatever, your default is to fall back to an empty array as well. So like if you were to set your lat and long to some places clearly in the middle of the ocean, like longitude of 0 or something, like 0, 0, I think that's in the middle of the ocean, right? I think. Then should be somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, I think. So, but if you do that, I bet it's fine. I bet there are no errors.
Yeah. So the only thing is, it's a nice to have to let the user know like which it is. It's either it's like there was nothing nearby or something wrong happened. So.
Yeah. How would you surface that in the UI though?
I don't know. I was thinking I have like a modal pop-up or something like that. Not exactly sure.
You could. The problem with that, like think about like if you're using it, if you're like on a phone and you're swiping around, you might like if every single time you swiped as you're trying to get across the ocean.
Yeah, that would be pretty annoying.
Right. So it might be better to let it fail.
Just silently. Leave it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. But yeah, so that's the only thing.
And then what was the other thing I was thinking of? So yeah, I think we just figured out why all the things are stacking. Shoot, there was something else I was going to say. Anyway, do you want to show it in action? I guess you showed it really briefly, but.
Oh yeah. So if we go here and we go to the React app, so basically these are all these tiny things are the pins. Yeah. So actually, yeah. Now that you mention it, it's because it's that component is there. That makes sense. So probably
It's just
we'll
adding a
move
bunch
the
of
map.
divs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We'll move the map back into the original map component, and then we'll consolidate that. But yeah, so those are the pins. Probably just need to add a little bit of CSS to make it so that they have like a opaque background and stuff, so they're more readable.
Yeah.
But
so our use case is that we're going to we're building this for a phone, right? So my suggestion when you demo is to open up the dev tools and have it set to device, so you can like Moto G4 or whatever the device is, and then your pins aren't going to look so tiny. One
yeah, my screen's really big. That's why.
Yeah. So the other, I remember what the other thing was on the pin itself. So the pin itself, actually, I'm not really sure how this would work from an accessibility standpoint, but the pin itself doesn't need to contain all like the title and description necessarily. Maybe you want the title as an alt attribute on the image, maybe. But
that's a good idea.
Some of that data you may not need, so you might be able to simplify the pin itself as well.
Okay. Put that in the pull request, but okay. Sounds
That's cool.
Good.
It's exciting to actually see pins. I'm really curious what those pins are about, because that's in Russia, right? Like,
yeah,
who knows what those spots are?
Yeah, there's some of them. I think there was like a couple churches and so because I was staring at the data for so long.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right. Aisling and Amber? Is that right?
Yeah.
Jen and Matthew were together? Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we had a really good start to the week, and then it just went downhill kind of. So I don't know if we have like one thing that's working. We had two originally, and now we only have one. So, but yeah, no, I'll just show you what we have. So
what was your issue again? It was the user's location, right?
Yeah, I'll talk you through it there now. Sorry, my computer gets a little bit slow with the Zoom, so let's see what to do here. And functions. Yeah, so they provided us with this lovely little sentence here: navigator geolocation watch position API. And so the idea is that you hit the button, you call this nice sentence, and then an alert or kind of and it says, would you like to share your location? Click allow. And then you also want us to.
Something's up with your audio. It was kind of.
Should we say?
Maybe switch off, like turn off the headphones, maybe. Like just go without headphones.
Sorry.
It's still happening. Would it be possible? Oof, yeah, that's hard. Is everybody hearing that? Yeah. Amber, would it be possible for you to screen share and Aisling can narrate maybe?
I should be able to. I don't think I've made any changes.
So I think maybe it's
since we last committed. Yes, hopefully I don't have the same problem. Hold on.
I don't actually know if that's going to fix it or not. Aisling, you'll need to. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, my computer cannot take Zoom and screen share and all that kind of stuff. So
no problem. Yeah.
So, yeah. So we started off the week and we kind of approached it in lots of different ways. But can you hear me there now?
Yeah.
So one thing that worked out quite well for us is the handle click. So if you scroll down a little bit there, Amber, you can see our handle click. That's where we're using the geolocation API, which actually was working on like Thursday or Friday, and then we did some stuff. I did some stuff with the button, so it's not working now, but it did show up at one point, which was very exciting. Yeah, and that was just handy because there was we just got it off an existing document online, and it had all the console logs and everything, which was great. I think what we had a problem with was we were also able to render our dot and our location, but we weren't able to actually find the location where we were. So that's the thing we had the problem with.
Oh, you mean so you had the information, but you weren't able to get the map to center on the user or something, or?
Yeah. So like if you go into,
never mind. It's my stuff in the way.
If you go into my location there, Amber.
Wow, dude.
Yeah. So we created the dot, and originally we had created it in a similar way to you, Andrew, but then I actually just went the CSS route because it just made more sense to actually get the dot to pulsate, because that was also in the criteria. And so quite a bit of CSS is involved. So we actually have the dot, it's pulsating, but it's not in a location that we want it to be. So
right, sure, okay.
So the way we approached it is we both kind of agreed that we wanted to try out context, because it's not something, well, I think Amber had a bit of experience with it, but I hadn't. But I think in the end, we probably should have just done props, because it probably would have just made it easier for us. I think we kind of got into a bit of a scenario where we were kind of trying new things later in the week, basically. So if you go back to footer then, if you scroll down, we used use state for the button, which works, but now what's happening is the button is changing, but the API call isn't working. I think that was where I put if you scroll up, I actually put it in the handle click, which is probably wrong.
The line marker?
Yeah. I don't know if because it's changing the button, but it's not now. The API isn't working.
Well, so I think, I've done my other changes now, so now it's crashing in a different way. But before I did the changes I did from today, the API was running. I just couldn't update context with the new latitude and longitude. Because these print in the console when it runs. You click the button. It's just, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. So I would think that these would reset latitude and longitude, and then I would add it. Oh, I had something else, but that would essentially update the context. But not sure. Yeah. Can anybody hear me okay? I sound a little staticky in my own ears.
Yeah, you're a little staticky, so it's okay.
It's better than.
I might, because this app I feel it's so sensitive to timing of things.
Yeah.
I would probably have like a set position as opposed to a set long and then a separate set lat.
Right.
You know, like do it in one call so that it like when it's updated, both of them are accurate.
Okay.
Because, you know what I mean? Because it's if you set one and if there's like if the frame redraw, like the page redraws or something before the other one gets set, then it's possible. I don't know. The app will be in kind of a non-determinate state, right? So.
That makes sense, because even when we get it up, because like right now, latitude and longitude are in a object that's center anyway, so we could just call it to update the center object as opposed to specifically the key value pairs for latitude and longitude.
Show me the context. Okay, here's the context. Context data is use context, location context.
So this is just using it, and then the is it main?
No, it's in location context you created, didn't you?
Yes, of course, that would make sense. So that was me trying to try different configurations, but right now this is just like it being initialized empty, and then consumer and provider being able to be ported in, and then I have the I have the provider on main. Nope, app. I did that already. So I have it going across everything, but like being used in footer because that's where our handle click function is. So I have it going in, and I thought that I wasn't sure if I was supposed to like have like a Latin set line maybe as like functions and just have them inside the location context JS so they could be pulled in with context and then used. but I had thought that this would update the longitude and latitude within the context, but that's not what's happening.
I saw in your location context you had a set lat long. You had it as one function at one point.
Yes, I need to. Now I just have too much code from trying too many things at once. I need to
Yeah.
double back in, shrink myself back down.
We maybe overcomplicated because we were thinking like, was there a way that we could actually just use the ID of the dot as well, or something like that? And I don't know.
Oh, like a reference or something. I think it can be simpler than that. So, and as we preach a lot in Collab Lab, like do the simplest thing to solve the AC, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can do it with props, do it with props. And if we find out that we need contexts later because maybe multiple components need to know this or something,
Yeah.
then we'll move it to context. But I would suggest maybe going back to simplifying it.
Okay.
The API in the Google Map React component is that you have a child and you pass it a lat long and it'll position it on the map, right? So
right.
that's what you want to get to, is just have those values, pass them in as a prop to this pin that's kind of conditionally rendered whether or not the user has allowed for the pin to be for their location to be shown. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So there's a state you want to track there, which is, has the user given permission?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that then it's going to start calling this location API, which is going to be feeding these locations, and you want to pass those through to that kind of me pin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know, and this might just be further down the line, but just for like my understanding of the app, like all around, is it supposed to like auto update as you move, or would you just click that location button again to update it?
No, it should. Yeah, as you're walking around, it should be just it'll update every so often. Every time it gets a new location from the satellites in the sky, it'll update.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think with time constraints, we probably should have stuck to what we kind of knew, but
yeah, I got too
I mean,
excited.
context isn't a terrible solution. It's just that it may not be necessary yet, right? Like we may decide that it is warranted further down the line.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll meet again, Amber, maybe tomorrow or something, and try and build on it a bit more, because we kind of had all the different parts, they just weren't working together. Like one thing would work at certain points in the week, and then just then it all came together. But it was really nice to see the API come up and just different things. Like we literally just put the dot into map, which maybe wasn't a good idea as well. Maybe we need to call it in a different way or something. I don't know. If you want to show that, Amber, maybe just what it looks like.
Where am I going? I'm sorry.
On the actual app, if you've the app running. I don't know if you've the app running.
Oh, I think I've made too many changes and now I don't know why it's crashing.
Well,
sorry about that.
We did have the dot in place in the map and all that kind of stuff, but it just was in a random.
Yeah, like what it was doing before, whatever I was muddling about with context broke the app. It essentially like pulled up the window, but the window was blank and the dot was where it would be if a map was rendered.
Right, I see.
But
okay.
And it was pulsating.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of interested in the effect, because I think yours is a lot more complicated than my blue dot was. I literally used the blue dot emoji, the blue circle emoji, and just had it like fade in and out.
Maybe
yours had like a border or some kind of like.
Yeah, maybe I can show it here because it's running on mine, but I don't know if it'll. If I try, will I try share my screen again? Maybe just.
Do I need to stop sharing? I'm assuming. So.
Yeah. Let's see. Come on, Wi-Fi. Let's see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it is.
Taking a second to come up on the screen. There we go. Oh.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, look at that.
No, it is pulsating, but it's got no location of relevance. But yeah, and we were able to change the button as well to location shared. It's just not calling the API at the moment.
Okay, all right.
So kind of halfway. We just need to do
it. Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I feel like I understand where we're at a lot better. That's really helpful. So I do have some ideas. I think that actually, the fact that we didn't like get through this issue this week, I think that's going to be fine, because I have an idea of sort of how we could sort of progress after this. So why don't we kind of transition into the retro? I will share my screen.
Cool.
What do y'all think of Notion?
Yeah, nice.
I like it.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to use it for a while, but I tried too many productivity apps and I told myself to stop.
Mm.
Yeah,
So I'm taking
hear
a little
that,
bit of break.
for sure. Yeah, we use this thing
That's
called Coda at work, and it's there's some similarities, but apparently you can embed a Coda doc in a Notion doc. But Coda has this like it's much more enterprisey in terms of its like pricing model and stuff. Whereas turns out Notion, you can have unlimited people collaborate. There's a limit on how many individual things you can have in it or whatever. But anyway, so we'll use it until they start trying to charge me for it. All right, so a little bit different kind of retrospective. So normally we do appreciations and what went well, what didn't go well, and that's a basic kind of thing that you would do on a software team. This is one of the things I think I'll do with you all is kind of experiment with some different retros, because I was kind of thinking like the point of this, like the project is harder, and that's fine, but it's also like the point of this is sort of, if we use this as like the 201 to the 101 of the smart shopping list, like this, like really it should be like stepping up, like you should be learning more about collaboration, right? It's not really about your tech skills as much as it is about like other ways that teams work together and stuff. So anyway, I'm going to be experimenting with different retrospective formats and stuff, kind of based on sort of where we're at with how things are going and stuff. So anyway, this kind of wind anchors rocks thing. So some people, they do like a lighthouse thing. Like there's a lighthouse that like is kind of keeping you safe. I opted for the wind thing, like what's kind of propelling us forward, what's helping us get to our goal. Anchors, so things that are slowing us down, keeping us from getting there. And then rocks, like what are the risks? What do we have to navigate to kind of keep the project on track? So I appreciate that everybody went in ahead of time and wrote some things down. So that's awesome. I guess like maybe we'll just take it in alphabetical order. And Amber, you want to kind of go first, kick us off with the things that you thought had put wind in your sails over the last 2 weeks?
Sure. I mean, I think we're all going to have a lot of overlap here, but just like everybody being good collaborators and just being really flexible and understanding about life, which is unfortunately not always a given when you work with teams. So that's always wonderful. And like you said, it's more about the collaboration, not more about the collaboration, but collaboration is an important aspect of building anything together. So I just think we all did a really good job with that. And it was just really good to like work with other people again, like with like COVID-19 and everything. I tend to do a lot of alone work in general. So I always like kind of halfway forget how good it feels just to build things with people. So that was just another like a nice personal thing for me. So yeah, working with Ashley and Jen was really awesome. I'm assuming working with Matt's going to be awesome. So yeah. Cool.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think as a team, kind of overall, that like you are communicating well in Slack. It's I think because this project is tough, like the way that we're going to get through this is to be talking all the time, like kind of just be super regular communication. Every time you learn something that worked, like say, hey, this worked for me, maybe try managing state in this way. Here's the thing I ran into that, I'm really stumped about this thing. I don't have time to work on it right now, but I'll come back to it. Like any ideas, like just like all that kind of stuff in the channel is going to allow us all to kind of help each other get there. My fear is that it's hard enough, this project is hard enough that if we each try to we go off and we do our part and then come back together and we only really talk once a week or something, that we're going to find too many things that kind of get in our way. So anyway, keep up the kind of good team communication.
It was really fantastic working with Amber. Obviously I hadn't met her, and I just think we think very similarly. The way she laid things out, just like a few kind of aha moments just about React in general from talking to her, which was really nice and encouraging. Matthew was such a joy to work with as well. Like the day I met him, I was just not on the ball and he was very understanding, so it was lovely. And obviously I've worked like a long time with Jen now, probably 10 weeks at this stage, and it's just lovely. She's just very complimentary, very supportive, always just trying to brighten people's day, which is so lovely. And I agree that I'm a direct message person. I don't really write that much in Slack. I like to directly message the person, but actually it's nice for other people to see what's going on. I forget about that people want to know how you're doing on your issue. And yeah, just the jokes and the bit of laughter and the bit of funny things from you, Andrew, have been so nice, and just the constant checking in is really encouraging as well, because some days it's kind of like you hit roadblocks and stuff, and you need to know that stuff too. So we need to share the good and the bad, I guess, is the idea. But it's been lovely. It's been really nice. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so I really appreciate Matthew and Amber, because I literally opened the call with, so tell me about yourself. And it was like super awkward opening, but it was really nice that like we get to know more people that are kind of in like the same spot of trying to career transition and things like that. And so it feels, it's building a community, which is really nice. And then I really want to give a shout out to Matthew for being a really great communicator this week and being really upfront with like that he just like couldn't do it this week, which is really great. Is nothing to apologize about. And I mean, some people would just ghost, but you didn't. And so I really appreciate that. You're really on the ball, even though you had a lot on your plate. So that was really awesome. And with Aisling, it's funny because we have been working together for a long time. And so I find her really, like her drive to be really motivational, because all the things that we wanted to implement in our last TCL project, she is now doing in this project, like immediately. It's only the second week and she's like, we're going to add this, we're going to add this. So I find that even though MVP, sticking the MVP is a real struggle, like I still find that at least having the drive to explore those options is really awesome and motivational. And I really love all the gifts and stuff from you, Andrew. It makes for a more lively Slack channel, and I loved how Stacy popped in and like dropped one in too. It's nice. So yeah.
Yeah, we were having a mentor retro, and she was like telling us how like we all need to be like way more encouraging in Slack and stuff. And so she like went into our channel and like said it too. I was like, okay, I get it. But it does make a huge difference, right? Like it's like we're all connected, we're trying to do something, and
yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I like how she added that and then just like walked away. Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of the same. I really liked how Aisling and Jen both kind of started our calls by like talking about each other. Not that there's anything wrong with going just straight into code, but I feel like working as a team, getting to know each other at least a little bit, really helps you feel more comfortable with that person. And then once you come up to like, you know, tough situations where you're just stuck on stuff, there's a bit more like relationship there that you can lean on. And I don't know, you feel more open to be vulnerable in the things you don't know. And so I really liked starting our calls like that. Yeah, Aisling was very fun to work with. And in my previous collab lab, we never kind of broke things up and worked on it separately and then came together. We always did everything together. And so I thought, I mean, they both are both good approaches, but I kind of liked for that task how we did a little piece and then came together for another piece. And so that was totally her idea. I really liked that. And then, yeah, I just really felt supported by Jen this week. I had a very difficult week. And so it was really nice that she took that off my plate, because I could barely focus on other stuff. So, and then, yeah, same to you, Andrew, for reaching out. And yeah, for all the like the check-ins and encouragement and like keeping us on task. It's needed a lot. It's easy to slip sometimes these days, just all blend together. So it's good to have people keep us accountable. So yeah.
Cool. Very good. All right. Okay, we'll talk about anchors. So things that you feel like held you back from making progress over the last 2 weeks. Let's go in order to Amber.
Sorry. We kind of already touched on it, but I think like just doing the minimum to meet the AC so we can build on it later is continuing to be a struggle for me. I get excited about different tools and like trying to get better at using them and all that good stuff, which is good overall. But if you're trying to push something forward and make a thing, you kind of need to pull back and just do what you know, so to speak. So I think that kind of hindered us a lot this week. because I was so committed to context.
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of said this a little bit already, but yeah, this is kind of like, I don't think this would be an appropriate first project for the TCL cohort. I think it is maybe it's a little bit too hard, and kind of, I mean, unless we were able to refine the stories down so it really was like a 1 week chunk for every 5-hour chunk for every issue. So anyway, I do have some ideas. We'll talk about them kind of at the end. And then I think the other thing like that, you all were very responsive in kind of responding to like, so how's it going? And those kinds of questions, but just being a little more proactive about that, like not like more push instead of pull, from my perspective would be helpful. I'm happy to kind of ask for status, but I also kind of, like even feeling like I founded stupid Collab, I was still like a little hesitant to be like, hey, how's it going? Thinking like, well, maybe they haven't met yet, or like maybe they haven't, like they're trying to get to a certain point and then they'll update me or something. So, anyway, just a little bit more, like just kind of keep it coming, like good things, bad things, successes, blockers, all that stuff. Just we should be just barfing words into Slack at all times.
Yeah, I think timing was one thing, and communication. I think we're all kind of say the same stuff, but definitely if you get ahead of the week, like if you can get 1 or 2 parts of the issue done by like Tuesday, Wednesday, you're kind of laughing, because like I'm finding, and I found this in the last cohort, the kind of stress of the Friday, Saturday when you're like, no, you've no time. So like definitely meeting for maybe a bit longer on the Monday, Tuesday, or just like, yeah, just trying to be proactive. But like things happen, like one day someone's sick or another day someone has work, so it's just like if you can get the bulk of the work done earlier in the week. Yeah. So I'll definitely try that this week, and definitely try and be a bit more vocal in Slack, and just say, oh look, we're coming up with this issue. If you're coming up with an issue on Wednesday and neither of you can solve it, maybe the other part of the group can, or maybe I shed some light. So I think just being generally louder and just like more proactive at the start of the week, that would be my only thing.
Yeah, actually, I just thought of something else. But for me, one thing was personal time management was hard, because at work, I'm dealing with other latitude and longitude issues as well. But it's like it's all like data engineering things. So it's like a completely different mindset, and like having to switch and then have a bunch of all other personal concerns and things like that. So time management is what continues to be a challenge, and I think was really what drove such a late pull request in the week. But I also think this is the second week in a row that I noticed, at least for myself, that really needed to stick to the MVP. And really, I guess I didn't completely understand the MVP or even read it very clearly until after I was done coding. And then I was like, oh, I probably should have done this instead. And so I think like really paying attention to the MVP and really paying attention to, are you sure you understand the AC was probably a big anchor, at least for the last 2 weeks for me.
Yeah, and then I mean, my biggest one was just the personal stuff I had going on. But I can definitely echo kind of getting ahead of the week, kind of like Ashling was talking about. I know in the previous Collab Lab, that was always my biggest issue, is like procrastinate a day or two, and then all of a sudden it's like later in the week, and we don't have enough time for the assistants once we hit those blockers. So yeah, moving forward, just because the first week we did so good about like it was done on like Tuesday, whatever it was, and so just kind of getting back to that moving forward is the goal.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I have so many thoughts. All right. Okay, and then lastly, rocks. So these are things that we can see so they're in any project, there's things that there are kind of known unknowns and known risks and stuff, and there's things you can't see. Obviously, we can't surface those, but hopefully by us all articulating the things that each of us can see, we're seeing slightly different things, and we have a little better picture of what the risks are. So this, is the project itself, the processes that we're following, how we're working together, communication, how available we are, all those kinds of things. But anything you can kind of think of that you think might be a risk. So Amber.
So I accidentally went over this on the other slide, but just like bouncing back off of what Jennifer said as well, just like making sure that you're not over engineering and that you are reading, not only reading, but getting the message that was intended. 'Cause I know, like you were saying, you wrote all the ACs and all the issues, but perhaps we're not reading them the way that you intended. So it's always good to have that, like to just touch base with you and make sure that we are interpreting our directions correctly as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just like being small and precise, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Good one. Yeah, from my perspective, a risk is that the project is hard. Like it's like, I'm trying to think back to when I first started working with asynchronous stuff, and it just like blew my mind, and like it was really hard, and like then I kind of over time, over a 20-year career, kind of got my head around how asynchronous stuff works. And y'all are very early in your careers, so this might be a little bit too hard. I don't know if that's true or not, but hopefully we can kind of get through it. We can it's a lot of asynchronous stuff, a lot of state to manage that all has to interact. Like, if you put together I think my app has at least 6 different states that I'm managing. And you think about like all the combinations of those, like is that 2 to the 6th power? I think is something like that. That's how many different combinations of state there are. So the app has to be resilient to all those. Like it's a lot to keep in your head. So the project is legitimately hard. So don't feel bad about like not completing everything on time this week. I try to scope everything down, but anyway, that's a risk for sure. The issues themselves are, like this isn't super unlike how like the very first TCL cohort, I had written out the AC, all the issues in the AC, and Stacy, Kate, Scott, and Caitlin were the guinea pigs, and they did a great job considering, right? But we've done a lot of refinement. By the time you all went through, we'd gone through rounds of refinement on those issues. So this is a first kind of raw cut at the issues. So they're not all evenly scoped and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I do have, like I said, I have ideas. But I think that is a legitimate risk. Like the issues are going to vary in size. So.
Yeah, I think feeding off of that, I'm like very conscious of that, like about future cohorts and like how you could scale it down. But like I need to kind of realize that if there's 3 things that you want by the end, we have to kind of keep that in mind. I think sometimes I look at it and I go, I can get 2 of them done, but maybe not 3. But like the goal is to get the 3, and so it's just thinking about that. Like obviously, feeding back to yourself and thinking about how the issue might be too hard or too easy or whatever, but actually just realizing tough luck, you have to do it. So I think that sometimes I think about that too much. I think so as we're going through, I'm like, oh, maybe we could do this instead of this and stuff, and definitely sticking to the issue and reading the issue. I think we all have a habit of maybe just like going straight into the coding and then reading the issue maybe on like the Wednesday or Thursday and going, oh, you have to do this first as well. So just like always having that on your other screen or like on a tab, just having the issue up. And like an early PR really helps me actually on the commit messages as well, as Jen mentioned down below. I still don't really do big long commit messages, so I want to try and implement that this week. Yeah, it's just like being a bit more organized generally, I think would help. Yeah.
So I'll say that it doesn't have to be just tough. You have to get it done. I mean, if there are 3 AC and you feel like you can get 2 of them done in a week, that's good feedback that maybe that other one needs to move to another issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have more to say about that too, but Jen, yeah.
The only thing is everybody keeps saying the same stuff, but basically I think having a goal of like earlier PRs, because that's something we're struggling with. Maybe I don't remember if we talked about it earlier, but even just like implementing as soon as you meet, just put up a draft PR so you know what direction you're headed and where you are. Maybe even being more collaborative between the 2 pairs, because right now we're pretty solitary in our pairs, but 4 heads are better than 2. So I think if time permits, I know everyone's schedule is busy. It would be really great if like all 4 of us could meet in the middle of the week so we could like help support each other with the different issues as the issues start to escalate in difficulty. And then what Aisling just said, it is a lot of effort to write commit messages, and even for myself, just because they're longer doesn't mean they're better. And so trying to really, at least yesterday when I was going through this issue, I was trying to make a conscious effort to think about how my commit messages look as a story for someone else looking at my code and conveying how I thought to work through the problem. And so I think it makes it easy when you pull up the pull request. Then you can just easily see what have they tried, where are they going, what do they still need to do. And so I think just continuing, at least for myself, to challenge myself and other people to do that would be helpful too.
There you go. No, I really like that. I've kind of heard people talk about commit messages being a form of documentation. Maybe Andrew, it's actually like a tweet you've shared or something, but I've definitely read that recently. And so that's a great approach to it. And then a lot of the other stuff is kind of echoing, communicating more in Slack. And then I've never thought about pitching in on the other pairs stuff as well. I don't know. I feel a bit silly that I haven't thought about that being a possibility, but that's a great idea. Making sure, we're reaching out. Sometimes 2 people can get in like a almost tunnel vision, and it takes that third person or whatever to come in and break it up, and then they can run away with it again themselves. And yeah, I think those are things that we could help us moving forward. But yeah, I really like everything that we're all bringing to this. So exciting.
Yep. Yeah, I like that a lot. So the themes seem to be just be a little noisier in Slack, a little more present in Slack, like talk about like what's going well, what's not going well. Getting started, making sure you understand the AC early in the week, because we'll talk about the kind of the issues that are like how to kind of proceed with the project in a second. But it is, these things are always, they're clear when I write them. They're clear to me because I just did them, but it isn't necessarily clear to you. And even like just explaining it, it's still not maybe clear. So sometimes you have to kind of get into it a little bit, like maybe spend a half a day kind of trying to work with it, and you're like, oh, now I understand what that AC even means. You may not even have the context for it, right? Let's see. I love the idea, like just kind of the good PR descriptions and commit messages. That helps me orient really fast to where you're at, like what you're trying to get done. Commit message that says remove context, move to props, or something like that as a commit message would be like, okay, I know exactly what to look for. I know where to look, that kind of thing. Like something that's really like, you go back through the commit log and you can kind of, it's like telling a story about how the project is going. That's kind of the goal, right? And the cross-team collaboration, I think that's amazing. That would be like, that's like taking collaboration to another level of just, like making sure the whole team is kind of on the same page. As I like to say, like, this isn't like you're not being tested. There's no grade, right? Like, it's not like this pair has to get this thing done or they fail or anything like that. It's the team trying to get something done. So if there's a point where all 4 need to come together, or you need to pull me in, or a pair wants to get on a call with me and clarify something, those things are all valid things to do to make sure that you have the context you need to kind of get the work done, right? So yeah, excellent, good stuff. So all right, so if we're thinking about this as sort of let's stop sharing so I can see your faces, as sort of collaboration, like taking collaboration to the next level, like you're learning that kind of thing. What we do in the shopping list app and what we've done kind of so far in this is similar to, there's a software methodology called Scrum it's like, that's the closest thing that to what we have been doing. So Scrum says, you have an increment, and in the increment, the team is committing to get a certain thing done. So on a big software team, it's usually 2 weeks, and the team will have several issues in there of different sizes. They do this thing called story pointing, where they, assign like a 1 to 1 to 13 to the story. And anyway, and they do some stuff individually, they do some stuff as, you know, pair programming or whatever, but they, as a team, commit to getting a certain thing done in a 2-week increment. We have it structured that the other project is pretty well structured so that, you know, a pair can get 1 story done per week, but it's basically the same concept. Like the team is committing to get those 2 stories done in a week. And then we do, you know, demos and all that kind of stuff on that cadence. There's another methodology that's called Kanban, and it was actually created in Japan for like factories. So the idea is that what you try to do is limit the amount of work in progress so that people aren't distracted trying to do multiple things at once, which I think we actually do a pretty good job of. But it is sort of more like a river of work that passes by. Okay, so there's no increment. You're not trying to get things done by a certain date, which in software, to me, feels a little artificial anyway. Like software is just not that predictable. Like, you know, everybody's different. The problems you run into are different. You know, there's a million ways to solve every problem. So some things take longer than others, blah, blah, blah. So the nice thing about Kanban is that we would still have demos every week. So whatever got done, we would demo. But there's no, like, the part that I haven't worked out yet, it would be how the pairing would work. So, you know, if we're not finishing things at the end of a week, and how would we like switch people up so that you're pairing with everybody? But this might be an opportunity. You've done that in the past, right? So what this could be is a much more sort of dynamic, sort of real world, like you're on an actual software team experience where there are things the team is trying to get done. We might set a work in progress limit of two things like we have done in the past. Like we can set that limit to be whatever we think the team can handle. And then people might take the lead on an issue, and other people jump in and help them at different points. When something's done, somebody picks up the next issue off the board, and that's the other thing that's in progress. But it would be a much more of a kind of a rolling thing. Ideally, the overall scope fits the amount of weeks, the number of weeks that we have allocated, but it would just be much more kind of fluid and dynamic and chaotic, maybe. So like there are downsides to it too. It would take a little more coordination, but it is like my team recently switched to it a couple months ago at Zapier, and I like it a lot more. Like the whole 2-week increment thing always felt kind of artificial, like we were either succeeding or failing based on some guess that we made 2 weeks earlier, you know, and that didn't feel right. So anyway, what do you think of trying a Kanban approach where we say we can only have 2 things in progress at a time. You all work out like who is kind of the lead on that issue, and then other people are chipping in to help them. Maybe they're pulling in, like, you know, maybe Jen's like, hey, Amber, I know you're good with context. Help me. I think I need context here. Can you help me kind of pair on that piece of it? And we'll try to get this going. Meanwhile, Amber might have something that she's the lead on. She's like, hey, Matthew, you know, like, I'd really help you. There's some UI stuff that I need to help with or something. You know, it would just kind of like, you would kind of have to manage yourselves a little bit more. Or do you like the structure how we were doing it?
I think that's a good idea, because if this is theoretically 201, that's why I kind of am also saying the whole thing about like commit messages and things. If we do it in the Kanban style, it forces people to talk more to each other because you don't necessarily know where they're at. And also doing all these things like commit messages, better PRs, helps people understand where you're at. So when they need your help, you can see what they've already done and where they're going. So I think that it makes it more like it's a realistic software dev team. And then I think even though it's more chaotic, the chaos creates more of a challenge for like the whole collaboration purpose. And I think, at least for myself personally, I've gotten the most out of being forced to learn how to collaborate on a software development team than actually developing the thing.
And you even jump off of that. Oh, sorry.
Go on, Amber. Yeah.
And just to jump on that for a quick second, if like the chaos is how the industry works, you might as well have practice with the chaos, and then it becomes less chaotic because you're used to managing it. That's all I got.
The only thing I was kind of thinking, like, for example, this week, I feel like if we all came together as a 4 in the next like 2 or 3 days, I think we could solve both those issues. I worry if you give one person the issue, it's kind of like, I'd rather it be like a pair has an issue and then the other pair like suddenly does very well earlier in the week and then they can help the other pair. I'd rather it be like 2. I worry like one person, it's just like quite like intimidating. I would say, like, I know if I was given an issue on my own, I'd probably be like, good luck, like I don't know what's going on. So
yeah, I think that's a good compromise since you're only going to have 2 issues in progress at once anyways at any given time. Like in this week, it's like, oh, you have priority to work with this other person, but it doesn't mean you can't work with other people as well in conjunction, right?
Yeah,
or like
and then
you like swapped. So let's say myself and Amber created something Monday, Tuesday, and Jennifer and Matt, and we literally swapped for the rest of the week or something like that, where it's like you're just building upon what other people did or something. I don't know.
yeah, the hard thing about like you have the designated pair. Yeah, there's only going to be 2 things in progress at one time, so it's theoretically you have 2 pairs working on the things.
Yeah.
But then one finishes before the other one, right? And then what do you do? Then like these 2 people want to see their issue through, but the other ones are ready to swap. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that's
Yeah. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, but we could do a thing where the issues persist and they're not tied to a boundary, but at the end of the week we still switch the pairs up. So maybe like this week, Jen and Matthew, like say, well, actually Aisling and Amber, like you didn't quite get through your thing.
Yeah.
But we still switch the pairs off, and then we decide, who kind of sticks with the issue, and somebody else pairs out with somebody else, like kind of tags in.
I like the sound of that because it's a fresh.
Yeah.
I guess if we don't finish either issue, we still switch the pairs up.
Yeah.
It's like a different.
Yeah. And it forces people to make better documentation of what they're doing so that people don't repeat the work that they've spent all week doing.
Yeah, you're handing it off to somebody, right? Yeah.
Which I think might be more realistic, right? Like if for some reason your priorities shift and your project lead says, hey, you have to change,
yeah, happens.
Someone else is going to take over. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Any thoughts, Matthew? You've been quiet.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm for all that. I like this kind of idea, how we did the Scrum for 101 and then a different style for 201. Since we're kind of switching up midway, I'm not sure the best approach. But I mean, one thing I was thinking was, and I don't know if it's too different from what we just said, but it could be like one person is kind of like you were saying, the lead on the task, and one's almost like a floater. And then if you kind of follow that task with that person, but then when you get to the end of the week, if it's not done, the lead still stays on their issue, but the floater from the other one swaps over, so you get like a new person. I don't know if that's
a good idea.
Makes sense. It just kind of thought in my head.
That's a way of putting it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
so,
all things are good. They're all good suggestions so far.
That's a good idea.
they don't necessarily have to. Go ahead, Amber. Yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna say I kind of like that better because you get both the like carryover from the last week's work and the fresh pair of eyes. You get like best of both worlds.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe we don't have to designate who the lead is necessarily, but like kind of by default, whoever sticks with the issue is sort of, they have the more context or something. So
It doesn't have to be any official title. It's just whatever.
Yeah.
So say like the first week, everybody had their stuff merged to production by Thursday, right? At that point, what would we have done? Would we have kept the pairs and started on new work for the next few days and then swapped out people? Is that right?
Yeah. Especially because you've just met that person. It's kind of hard to because it is like you are talking to the person for a good 20 minutes when you first meet them, just to get to know them. So
yeah, for sure.
I think you just would roll on, and that's what I would say if that we had a week where we got it in early again, you would just continue. it just makes sense, like, you know, just to get ahead of the game kind of. But
All right, cool.
I don't know if we'll have another one of those weeks though.
You're gonna say might have just came out good week 1.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah,
not.
I guess we'll see. Okay, well, this sounds like it's becoming a plan. So we don't really have to change anything about the board. The board is already in kind of a prioritized order and kind of a rough dependencies order as well. Like you couldn't really jump to the end of the list and implement the thing without getting a lot of the things done ahead of it for most of the issues. There are a couple that are like that actually, but where it's like there's some like help text and stuff, or like these help videos and stuff towards the end that we were going to add, but which could be done at sort of any time. But some of the things do depend on each other. So, all right, I like that as a plan. So we'll have a work in progress limit of two things in progress at any one time. So one of the things about Kanban is you have your thing that's in progress, the thing that you're kind of actively working on, and you can have things in review. Like once you move that card to review, you're welcome to put another thing in progress.
Okay.
So this is where I worry a little bit about the amount of time that you'll would end up spending if you have a thing in progress and you have a thing that's in review, and you're like having to like manage changes for this and work on the new thing. Like I really don't want you to spend more than 5 hours a week. I mean, if you can help it, you know. So one of the sort of pillars of Collab Lab is that it's accessible for people who have other things going on and all that kind of stuff. So so we just maybe need to be mindful of that. We might move something into progress so you can start kind of investigating or something, but you know, don't maybe, you know, make sure that that first issue gets moved through the other stages, you know, respond to the feedback and all that kind of stuff. That's the higher priority than the new stuff that's in progress. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. This is exciting. This is like we're breaking new ground for Collab Lab. So we'll see how it goes. I just learned about how to do Kanban like 6 weeks ago, so it's gonna be fun. Cool. All right. With that in mind, we have nothing's been merged to production this week, so we still have work to do on both those issues. But we're gonna swap people out. So there we go. You know, reliving this here in a second. Aisling and Jen reunited after your TCL experience, TCL 5, where they're still making commits on TCL 5.
Oh yeah, we're still planning on new features and things like that actually.
Aw, love it.
Diane, who was in that cohort, like committed like 43 commits that went in today or something. Like,
Yeah. Because we all met up actually at 3 p.m. the 4 of us, and that's why we were like, there's so many GitHub things. It's just we were closing issues, merging things, blah.
It's amazing. All right, and then Matthew and Amber, you all are together. So we need to figure out who's going to kind of continue with each of the issues that are in progress.
I have no preference. I mean,
Amber, step away, or do you want to continue?
I guess I could continue since we're all kind of non-committal.
Okay.
Okay, so myself.
So you can come to team fetch information.
Okay, so can I ask you all, because it's late and I need some dinner, to reassign who is assigned to the cards on the board?
Yeah.
And I guess they're both. One of them is in review, though, right? Is that true? No, they're not.
Yeah,
So.
Jen, is yours still?
Yeah. They're both still in progress. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, reassign who's assigned to those. You know, as soon as you need a review, like let the group know, and you know, we'll get in there and do some reviews. You don't necessarily have to, and let's maybe change this too. Like you don't have to get the other pair's review first before you tag me in. Like I can come in and start looking at it too. So we can kind of keep things moving. But I do want the other pair to see the other work. At this point, because you're swapping people, everyone's going to see everything, I think. But you know, I do want everybody to kind of be over all the code in the project at all times. So make sure you do at least take a look and kind of do a cursory review at whatever point before it gets merged in.
And so should we move on to the next issue then, Andrew, if this like hopefully would be finished early?
Whenever they resolve, right?
Yeah, whenever we get something merged into, well, actually, even if it moves into in review, like if you really feel like it's done and you're just waiting for some feedback, there might be some minor changes, you can move the next issue into in progress.
So you just choose your own.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much in priority order. So you just take the next one from the top of the list. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. That's like a good way of working. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'm
I
excited.
think another thing that would be helpful for this, because definitely some teams might have like different paces, is like maybe you could say something like, by this week you should probably have these issues done. By this week you should have these, just so that like people don't get by the end and then all of a sudden they have 10 issues in the last week or something like that.
Yeah, that's what we found in our last cohort. There was just like a lot of like, I think it was more CSS stuff really, but definitely that midweek like 4-way call and like actually like forward thinking of what you want the app to look like and function like was really helpful. So I think if we could get on that call maybe Wednesday or whatever day suits people, I think it would be good.
I think for this project, some of the stuff I have at the end, if we didn't get to it, you'd still have a working app, you know? So, and I think I just either 12 or 13 issues total in the project, which, you know, if you did 2 a week would mean we were done after week 6, right? So, so I think there's a little bit of buffer. If some things do take a little bit longer and stuff, it's not the end of the world. Hopefully the overall scope does match an 8-week time frame, but we'll see. If we have to drop a couple things at the end, if we have extra time at the end, like if we get done week 7, I think I did add another card about some kind of like search or something that we could add to it. So one of the things I guess that's going to be a little trickier to manage with this is when you pick up a new card, when you move something in progress, I might need to get on a call with you and kind of talk you through the AC a little bit. So I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. Like we'll just have to coordinate a little bit, you know, and you can get in and read it and see if you understand it, maybe play with it a little bit. You know, because with my day job too, like it might need to be in the evening or something before I can do that. But
it's totally understandable.
Yep.
I think that's it really, is it? Say stuff and stuff if you don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna ask something, but then it totally flew out of my brain. So
If it's important, it'll loop around.
The first time myself and Amber were meant to meet, Slack wasn't available, and I was like, freaking.
Oh yeah, Slack was down for like a little bit. Yeah. Our whole company was like, I was like, where is everybody? Oh, Slack is down. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I thought it was the invincible thing. Yeah.
Oh no, but this is what I wanted to ask. So if I have an idea of like changing up the issues so that like week 1 and week 2 are a little bit more balanced, where should I put that feedback?
We can make a Notion doc maybe to track that.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say make a Notion doc? Okay, cool.
Let's do it. Let's track it there. If you have suggestions about how to rescope the cards or something, definitely let me know. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Nice. All right. Cool. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks everybody. Great work. Awesome retro. I'm really excited to try this Kanban thing with you. I thought about it before we got started and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's too weird and chaotic and stuff, but I think you all are going to take to it. I think it'll be all right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, have a good rest of your weekends. I have tomorrow off. I don't know about y'all, but I took tomorrow.
No. Gotta go work.
All right. Okay. All right. Take care. Thank you. Have a good night.
Y'all have a good night.
Bye.
Night.